Let's talk about love stories today. Love stories about relationships between older men and much younger women. Both of the narrators or protagonists are women, aspiring writers with overbearing mothers. In fact, I would say that the male lovers are treated with more tenderness and consideration than the mothers. Both are novels, although the classic in this week's episode, The Lover, published in 1984 in France and then translated to English in 1985, was, according to the author, Marguerite Duras, completely autobiographical. And the other book, Thirst for Salt, by the 34-year-old Australian writer Madelaine Lucas, and published in 2023 by HarperCollins, must be based in personal experience. In fact, I would say when the book veers off into fiction, or at least the broader strokes of fiction, that it begins to lose its duende. But anyway, more on that later. Come on, let's go. I'm not gonna lie. Before I lucked out and met my wife 17 years ago, who is exactly my age, I went through a phase of dating much younger women. Between when I was, I'd say, 28 and 35, I sometimes had girlfriends as young as 18 years old. While those relationships might have been doomed no matter what we did, they weren't, as might be generally assumed, damaging or unhealthy, or no more so than any relationship between, let's say, star-crossed lovers. Nor were the power dynamics or the shifts in them any more charged than in any, I think, erotic relationship. The give and take, let's say, of wants and needs were balanced and taught as long as the relationship worked. There might have been confusion, there might have been a desire for forbidden fruit, let's say, but there was mutual respect. At least I think so. I mean, you know, my exes can out me in the comments if they want. They can cancel me. There's nothing to cancel. But anyway, I was glad to see, or edified to see, that these two women authors treated these relationships seriously. As relationships, that is, formative rather than, let's say, predatory or scarring. But I guess that's up for debate. I mean, both of them, both Lucas and Duras, are true artists in that they don't approve or disapprove of their stories or the characters in them. They just narrate. It's funny, I've never been able to write about that time in my life or that aspect of my life, at least not directly, without coming across like a shark. And I guess I was a shark. I mean, in all of those relationships, they were appetite-driven at first. In every romantic relationship I've ever been in, it was appetite-driven at first. I went after the women because I was physically attracted to them. Also, perhaps I struggle because I feel a little bit on the defensive in this cultural climate. I mean, could a male writer write about this type of relationship with this kind of age differential, 15 or 20 years, from the male's perspective, without sugarcoating it, without pulling punches, and have it not offend the average current reader of or editor of literary fiction? I don't think so. I mean, that might change, but right now, I think a book like that would perhaps even repulse the gatekeepers. But at least we've got, you know, these two books, which I think do the dynamic justice. In Thirst for Salt, we've got shark bait. That is the term of endearment that her lover uses for her in the closest we get to a name. She's 24 years old and she's on holiday with her mother in this Australian coastal town called Sailors Beach. She works year-round in Sydney in a bookstore. And in fact, at the beginning of this novel, she is reading The Lover by Marguerite Duras and quotes from it a couple of times. Her lover is Jude. He's 44 years old, 20 years older than she is. He lives year-round in Sailors Beach in this kind of prefabricated beach shack family heirloom that he also uses as a workshop. He makes his living buying, refurbishing, and reselling old furniture. The story is told 13 years after the affair is over from the perspective and in the voice of Sharkbait. She has moved on and now lives in New York City, where she's carved out a place for herself in the literary world, not unlike Madelaine Lucas herself. And she pines for this love affair, for the missed opportunities that it represents for her. The book is evocative and atmospheric, for example, in the way that it describes Sailor's Beach, the sun, the sand, the water, the weather, in the way that it describes the lover's lair, this prefabricated beach house / workshop where Jude and Sharkbait hole up to make love, in how it describes the way that the couple adopts this stray, aging, enormous dog whose health and vitality reflect the health and vitality of the relationship. The book is erotic without being explicitly so. First contact, the first kiss, the honeymoon phase, the first cracks in the honeymoon phase, how both lovers, or the effort both lovers put in despite the fact that they both sense that the relationship is doomed. And then the slow, painful parting. It's all extremely well done. The prose is lyrical and first rate, although I wouldn't say seamlessly so. For example, there is this passage where Lucas describes her narrator's orgasm, and I swear, if a man wrote this, he would be fucking tarred and feathered. Held steady, twitching, opened like a fruit, cresting in italics, like the sea, wave after wave after wave. I don't know, man, but it's forgivable because of how well Lucas describes the narrator's clumsiness and insecurities before her lover, Jude. Lucas is onto something here. Her narrator has so little life experience that she doesn't know how to move in the world. She doesn't know how to move in space with other people. She keeps getting in her own way. She's both resentful and drawn to Jude's past life. Let me read you this wonderful passage and just check out its figurative power. I dripped water on the floor, brought the sand in with me, bled on his sheets, ground down the gears on his truck, left my clothes on the couch, scratched the records by leaving them out of their sleeves, left water rings on the wood, broke his antique crystal glasses. It's like living with a teenager, he said. I was clumsy, careless. It's not my fault, I wanted to say. I hadn't learned how to contain myself, to be easy, gentle, to hold on to anything without breaking it. With the pressure you put on things, love, Jude said, they'll never last. That is the paragraph of a skilled and talented novelist. Part 3, the final section of the book, the last 90 pages or so. It seems to me it goes astray. I saw the end coming. Not in a bad way, but I wondered how she would deal with it. And I don't think she dealt with it deftly. But, you know, it's hard. The events and circumstances seem to play out heavy-handedly, almost with this connect the dots like symbolic shifts. And it also seems like Lucas doesn't really know the larger significance of her story. Not that it needs a larger significance, but she seems to want to impose one on it. She seems to want to convert it into this bleak tragedy. I would say gratuitously bleak. The characters lose vitality. The mother becomes a harpy. Jude and Sharkbait go flat because of all they're bulldozed by the events and the circumstances that Lucas imposes on them. You know, in the last section, there's this wonderful passage where the narrator recalls this parable that her dad used to tell her when she was young, and it's just the most depressing, nihilistic parable you can imagine. I think it's the parable of the wolfhound, the hunter, and his baby. And the narrator thinks like how she always hated that story. Like, what was the point? It was so cruel. What was the moral? That is exactly what I thought when I finished Thirst for Salt. I mean, why would you put such life-affirming material, this love story, through the wring so mercilessly? I mean, where is the kind of art in that? You know, I mean, instead of breaking our hearts, she seems to want to stomp on them. But you know what? Look, I come to this book with my own baggage and belief systems. It's possible that readers out there will love the ending of this book. The Lover is a more controversial book. The age differential between the lovers is less, 12 years rather than 20, but the young woman is a girl. She's 15 and a half and still in boarding school. All there, but nothing done yet, as Marguerite Duras writes. The book takes place in Saigon when it was still a French colony. Around 1930 or so, Duras and her narrator come from this family of down-and-out colonists. Her dad died young, left the mother to fend for herself and their 3 children. The mother is mentally unstable. Her 2 older brothers are stupid and or petty layabouts. The only one who is sharp and savvy is Duras herself. She ends up prostituting herself, becoming a kept woman at the subtle encouragement of her mother, who wants to save the family from financial ruin, but also because Duras wants to flee the family because she knows that the scandal that arises from this will never allow the family to admit her back into the fold. The man who keeps her and keeps her family is also a colonist, but Chinese. His father is one of the richest people in the province. He made his fortune by providing cheap but shabby housing for the Vietnamese working poor. His son is first drawn to Duras on a ferry where she is wearing, get this, a threadbare, almost transparent, sleeveless silk dress with a low neck, gold lame high heels, and a men's pink fedora with a broad black ribbon. All right? This man ends up driving her back and forth to school every day, and one day they end up back at what is essentially his unfurnished fuck pad in downtown Saigon, and they end up spending every afternoon there and falling in love, each in their own way. He with this kind of pathetic and doomed abandon, and her with this cold passion. Although I think that he becomes her refuge. Both the book and Duras as a precocious teenager are uncanny in their realizations about what makes a woman attractive to most men and how it's not what most women think. Young Duras exploits her nascent sexuality, presenting herself to the world and to potential suitors as both spoiled and unspoiled. The sex in this book is more directly written about than it is in Thirst for Salt, or maybe more concisely and certainly more effectively written about. It's so hard to write about the physicality, the sensations, the choreography of sex without it coming across as cringeworthy, vulgar, or overly prim. Duras achieves it. The book also stands out for its structure, which at first seems disjointed and random and sometimes just plain off, but upon reflection, I kind of see it like improvisational jazz, that Duras began with something recognizable and began to do variations on it and went so far afield that you wonder how she could possibly bring it back to the original riff, but she does somehow, amazingly. I read somewhere that she had completed 48 works, screenplays, experimental films, novels, before she wrote The Lover, a novella just over 100 pages when she was 70 years old. I know themes like cold passion, obsession, family strife, and tragedy were always present in her work, so I like to imagine that just everything came together with this novella, that she hit all the right notes, no excess. It has its own sweet, generous structure. You read it wanting more, or you finish it wanting more, but it's obviously done. It's as though she explained everything she could possibly explain without betraying the, I don't know, stupefying and inexplicable mystery of it all. The end isn't bleak, or seems fated. It doesn't seem imposed, it seems inevitable. And both Duras and the reader are surprised at the end because something beautiful and pure remains. The book is about race, class, colonialism, bisexuality, sexual fluidity, the power dynamics that exist in sexual relationships. All of the buzzwords that you might find on book jackets these days, hoping to capture your interest, it's all there in the book, not on the book jacket, but without any agenda, without any moralistic bombast. She's not claiming victimhood, she's not pointing out privilege. All she's doing is telling her fascinating and brutal story. There was a good film made about The Lover in 1992 by the French director Jean-Jacques Annaud, although Duras didn't like it, and I can see why she didn't like it. The Chinese lover is too manly and handsome, her family comes across like dastardly villains. The story has definitely been dumbed down, it's less rich, it's less thought-provoking. It does some things right, but I think literature is the best way to tell love stories, because love is really about a mingling and a clash of perspectives. The drama is in the different way that the lovers interpret circumstances and events, right? The different ways or the different things they think and notice as they resist love, then fall in love, and then fall out of love. Books do that best. And I think both The Lover and the meat of Thirst for Salt, by which I mean the love story, not necessarily the falling out of a love story, do that about as well as a work of art can. I would recommend that you pick up both books, and who knows, you might disagree with me about the end of Thirst for Salt. Without a doubt, Madelaine Lucas is a talent to watch. I'm ending this video before this painting. I work in Andalusian public radio, and in the lobby right now there is this art exhibit by an artist named Juan Carlos Basco Rodriguez, and this is the most expensive painting in the exhibit, $30,000. It's called Vuelo, Flight. It compares a naked woman to an airplane in flight. Quite an impressive metaphor, don't you think?